Welcome to Ladies Talking Business. I'm your host, Moremi Akano. On today's episode, we will be talking about improving the food and agro sector in Nigeria with our guest, Joyce Akpata. Joyce was appointed the Director General of the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce and further moved to the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, where she brought experiences to bear in the administration of the chamber. Joyce currently serves as Head of Policy and Advocacy at the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, GAIN. Thanks so much for joining us on the show today, Joyce.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So let's talk about food and agro in Nigeria. What steps can we take to improve the food sector in Nigeria?
Okay, when we talk about the food sector, I consider it a very broad categorization, because the food sector, we can say, consists of different subsectors, and this would range from agriculture to food packaging and processing, to logistics and supply chain, to aquaculture, to livestock farming, a whole system. And looking at how vast this sector is, you would agree with me that each of the subsects would have its own challenges. Okay. But then one thread that cuts across all these subsects would be, I think, the need for an enabling environment that would enable players in this sector to thrive. You'd agree with me that no matter what kind of business you're into, no matter what kind of sector you're operating in, once the environment is not conducive, then the business or the sector would not grow as expected. So in addition to ensuring that there is an enabling environment for businesses and players in this sector to thrive, I think key considerations also in improving the food and agricultural sector would also be the need for adequate infrastructure to support the growth of the sector. And infrastructure plays a critical role because it affects both production, both access to market, transportation, and logistics, and a whole gamut. So I think to ensure that we reduce incidences of waste, especially post-harvest losses, then infrastructure has a critical role to play.
So infrastructure as in what exactly? So if we talk about infrastructure, what are we trying to bring out?
Okay, so when we talk about infrastructure now, we look at power.
Okay.
If for a business you want to go into food processing, there's a lot of conversations around post-harvest loss, and how do we curb or reduce incidences of post-harvest loss is to ensure that we process these food products when they are harvested and in season. That way you're able to have them off-season. Okay. If there's no power, if there's inadequate power, then processing becomes challenging. And it's not now a cost-effective way of preserving food products. It's also not providing the opportunity for businesses to convert these food products into processed commodities or processed products that can be used by various consumers. So power is a key thing.
Okay.
And we talk about infrastructure in terms of road and road network and the safety within the road, and that's very, very key because the consumers are far off from the farms themselves. These food products, once harvested, they need to be transported to various markets across the country. And you agree with me, that the situation on our roads are not very conducive. Yeah. The roads are in a very deplorable state, which makes logistics tasking in terms of getting these foods to the markets and indeed to the consumers. So those are key challenges I think we needed to look at to ensure that we support this sector to grow.
And I think insecurity at the moment is another huge challenge. I mean, you just spoke about the roads, bad roads, for example. But insecurity is, I think, another thing that affects that industry as well.
Oh, definitely. I mean, in the past couple of years has been a major issue It's something that's affected farmers. We have a lot of farmers not going to the farms because of fear of banditry or attacks. And that definitely has also affected the supply of food. It also it led to an increase in the price of food commodities as well. Definitely you agree with me that once there's no security, you have a lot of vices and cascading effects that come with that as well. It's discouraging, and it's something I believe that even though government is making efforts towards curbing some of these excesses, but there's still a lot that needs to be done to
Yeah.
restore confidence in these farmers, to get them to go back to their farms.
Absolutely. So in Nigeria, I know that we grow a lot of things in this part of the world. But how can we, position this sector to be export ready, especially for the foreign market? Like, in your opinion, because I know you've dealt with SMEs in this sector and all before, but what do you think that we can do to get export right?
In 2020, yeah. Nigeria recorded the total of about 320 billion in terms of agricultural export, and the sector contributed to, I think, about 23% to the GDP of the country, according to data from the National Bureau of Statistics. And most of these agro exports were major commodities like sesame seed, cashew nuts, cocoa, ginger, and the likes. I think this figure just goes to show us that the potentials are enormous, and Nigeria is yet it's just scratching a bit of the surface, really.
Yeah.
And I know government, we have quite a lot of initiatives and incentives by government championed by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Efforts have been made to diversify the economy away from oil, which we have been dependent on over the years.
Yeah.
But then these efforts still leave much to be desired, as the agricultural sector is still beset with a myriad of challenges, like we had discussed, that are hindering the sector's ability to effectively contribute to the growth of our economy at a rate that is desirable. Some of these challenges would include things like poor packaging and labeling, poor storage facilities as well, improper use of preservatives, supply chain and logistics challenges, and poor infrastructure, And I think these are deterrents to export, because let's look at, for instance, the improper use of preservatives. For a lot of countries that would receive products from Nigeria, they pay particular attention to the kind of chemicals that are used to preserve foods, and they have standards that we must adhere to. Where we as Nigerians who are seeking to export don't adhere to these standards, then our commodities will not be accepted in
the
such
foreign
country.
market. Okay, Joyce, I'm going to have to stop you there, but we'll continue with this conversation right after the break. Thanks for staying with us. This is Ladies Talking Business, and our guest is Joyce Akpata. So Joyce, shortly before we went on break, we were talking about, positioning Nigerian agro businesses for export. And I had to stop it there because we had to go on break. But let's just pick up from where we left off on that, about positioning them for export.
Yeah, so, I was talking about the fact that we needed to comply to global standards if we want our products to be acceptable in the international market.
Yeah.
When we don't comply to these standards, then we have instances of our commodities being rejected. A couple of years past, we had this issue that was around going on about Nigerian beans being rejected abroad, because of the preservatives used and the level of preservatives that were still found in the beans, even when exported. That led to us having those products rejected. And that's a lot of investment going down the drain for some of these exporters. So for us to actually ensure that we maximize the opportunities provided by the export market, we need to ensure that we comply to global standards as regards the use of preservatives.
Yeah.
We also need to ensure that we properly package and label our products appropriately to show the necessary nutritional value. That's very, very critical, especially for processed food
Food.
items.
So these
Those are
factors that
very,
you've mentioned, do you think they are responsible for the minimal participation of Nigeria in the AGOA program?
Oh, definitely. These are key issues that have hampered utilization of AGOA. I mean, AGOA is a trade preference agreement, which basically seeks to encourage exports from sub-Saharan African countries to the US market. And indeed, some of these challenges that I had mentioned earlier have hampered our participation in AGOA. Nigeria has been active in AGOA, but majorly for oil products. But when it comes to agro commodities or apparel, we haven't really done much. And I believe there's still an
Opportunity.
opportunity
I mean,
for
we have
Nigerian
few
businesses.
years left. We have few years left
Yeah.
before the AGOA program ends.
Between now to 2025,
5, yeah.
really, if we are very intentional, I believe we can still take advantage of what is left. There's quite a lot that can be benefited from AGOA. But like I mentioned
Absolutely.
earlier, some of these challenges don't make Nigerian products or commodities competitive to the US market. And I also think another challenge to add that has also, that are taking advantage of AGOA is the fact that we've not over the years had an implementation strategy, and that definitely is a major challenge because if you don't plan, then you don't expect any results. But when you're very strategic in your outlook and in terms of implementation as well, then you're able to achieve your desired results or objectives. So that's very, very key, and
Absolutely.
I think the opportunities are quite enormous. And indeed, we should now even start thinking beyond AGOA. We have the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has come into place. So, I mean, the opportunities for export are there for us to take advantage of as a nation.
I agree, absolutely. So you currently work with GAIN. How can we, and I know that, I mean, the one of the biggest, or would I say the vision of what you do is ensuring nutritional standard in food. So how can we ensure our foods and produce are up to their nutritional standard, especially in this part of the world?
Okay, I mean, for us, I mean, we're very focused on ensuring that every Nigerian has access to safe and nutritious food, at affordable prices. And how do we achieve that? I think key things that we want to look at is to encourage farmers, and train them to adopt good agronomic practices, because this would ensure that there's sufficient supply of safe food at a local level and indeed at the global level. Because, I mean, if we're able to achieve sustainability locally, then we have much more than enough to also feed the world, and in encouraging them to adopt these agronomic practices that are positive, would also be supporting and minimizing the environmental impact that these farming practices would have, especially encouraging how best we can adapt to climate change, I believe also if we encourage the use of nutrient-dense and biofortified varieties of food products, then we're able to also enhance access to more nutritious food because these varieties are nutrient-packed, and that way, consumers are able to get more nutrients from consumption of these varieties.
Please. Absolutely.
Another critical issue, I think, is issues around food safety. We need to create more awareness around food safety. We should see that as everyone's business and everyone's responsibility so that food processors especially are encouraged to comply with industry standards and good practices for processing and storage and preservation of food as well. Yeah.
Okay, Joyce. So from your experience in the, agro sector and working with SMEs, what part of the agricultural food chain do you think requires more attention? So that's like the untapped areas that you think more SME presence is needed in.
I believe we would need more SME presence in food processing.
Okay.
That's very, very key. Why do I say so? As a country, a very large percentage of food or food commodities or crops that we produce go to waste. And why do they go to waste? Because we don't take advantage of the high season to preserve or process these food products so that we have them available all year round. So if we have SMEs investing in producing, converting these food products, crops into products that can be used off season, that would be very, very critical, and I believe that would be an added advantage. The opportunities are enormous. I know that some of these, starting up some of these processing plants might be capital intensive, but I believe that businesses that are resilient and have done their own homework as well will be able to venture into that sector and make a mark, especially if they are producing nutritious food, which will be attractive to the consumers.
Absolutely. Okay. More conversations with our guest coming up after the break. I'm still here with Joyce Akpata, Head of Policy and Advocacy at the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. All right, Joyce. So what are some of the main challenges hindering the growth? I mean, I know we spoke about some earlier, but can you just tell us one or two more hindering the growth of the food and agricultural sector in Nigeria that you think if we focus on this one or these two things, there's going to be like a massive boom in that industry?
I think a key thing for me is, lack of adequate implementation of government policies. As a country, we have fantastic policies, well written, well researched, but then when it comes to implementation, it's zero.
So how can they improve implementation? Is it that we don't have enough manpower to ensure things are done, or is it that we don't have willing hearts to ensure things are done, or what exactly is it?
I think it's more of willing hearts. Once there's a political will to drive some of these things, then we can make an impact, really. And, without implementing some of these policies, we would not get to where we want to be. That's very, very critical. There's so much that can be done. I mean, the agricultural sector is one of the largest employer of labor. So you can imagine, if we are focused on this sector, we're not only creating jobs, we're also feeding ourselves and feeding the world, if we do so. I think also perhaps we can also say lack of adequate financing can be a drawback. We talked about the fact that if you have SMEs trying to go into food processing, they might be looking at issues as startup costs being high. But really, if we are able to have adequate finances for players in this sector, I think that would also boost performance in this sector.
Well, it seems like, or would I say there seem to be a lot of opportunities, but you hear SMEs complain about the difficulty in actually getting these loans or these grants, to proceed. So I think that's another thing that we actually need to look at, another thing we need to talk about, the access to the funds.
In my interaction with SMEs, I realized that sometimes a lot of them have not positioned themselves to take advantage of these opportunities in terms of accessing finance, which is something a lot of SMEs struggle with. You see SMEs who don't have their records, don't have proper books of accounts, don't even have a registered business. So those are some of the issues. Once they have a registered business first, once you keep proper records and books of accounts, once you have a system in place, once you have sound corporate governance principles in place, then really if you approach any financial institution, and you show them these things, then you will be able to access funding. There are a lot of opportunities, even from government, in terms of some funding, from development partners, from development banks, accessible to SMEs. But really, if you don't do your own homework and put your house in order, no one is going to throw their money at you. So you have to also do your own bit. Yeah.
Okay. So as someone who has been in the heart of commerce, like you've really, really been positioned in commerce over time, how can technology improve commerce in Nigeria?
Okay, so I consider myself a technology enthusiast, because I mean, technology just helps me do a lot, in terms of working smartly, because I tell people these days, it's not about how hard you work, but about how smart you work.
Yeah.
And really, technology really does help, life as we know it before has changed, occasioned by the pandemic, and we've seen what typically is a health challenge become a global economic disaster, and that has caused people to rethink the use of technology. That has forced us to adapt and change how we operate. A lot of businesses have had to, reorganize themselves. A lot of people have embraced remote working, and technology has helped. And when you bring it down to commerce, especially e-commerce, before COVID, I'm sure a lot of us were a bit averse to online shopping, or other interactions online. But now, because of the convenience, most people, would opt for shopping online. We have quite a number of third-party marketplaces that are available for businesses to explore. So you have Jumia, Konga, Amazon, and quite a lot that are still coming up. Technology ensures that you reach a wide range of audience with the click of a button. So you have various digital marketing platforms that you can explore to grow your business, and attract customers. You have technology to use for fleet management. If you have dispatch riders who are supplying your items, technology helps you to do that. When you talk about inventory and warehouse management, technology helps you to do that.
I mean, there are apps that even do that easily now in terms of inventory and management.
So I think really you can't run away from technology now. And, for a lot of businesses, especially small businesses who render service, I think technology has made the startup cost lower, because you don't have to have a shop front. A lot of businesses are based online or on Instagram, and they're turning in millions. Without having a shop. You just have to have your smartphone, a good camera, and a reliable logistics partner, and you're home and dry. So I think technology has transformed, a lot of businesses and the e-commerce space, and I'm sure there's much more to come as well.
I agree, Joyce. Very quickly before we go, what are what words do you have for SMEs out there in terms of making the best of business opportunities, especially in the food and agro sector?
Thing for SMEs, be prepared. Keep your books of accounts. Separate your personal finance from your business finance. Be creative and innovative and proactive. The world is dynamic, so you also have to be dynamic as well and change with times. So those are key things I would have. And be resilient.
Yes.
Running a business in Nigeria takes a lot of resilience. So don't give up at the slightest challenge, Brace up for the journey. And I believe at the end of the day, you'll be the best for it.
Fantastic, Joyce. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure. And thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. This is how far we can go on this episode of Ladies Talking Business. Do join us this same time next week for another episode. Don't forget to follow us on PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle on YouTube to catch up with our programs. I'm Moremi Akano. Bye for now.